I don't really have anything to demo, but real quick, I can show. I dropped something this morning, which was the first step towards getting actual story tiles into the UI.
Woo!
Um, so what happens now today is, you know, the control plane executes a request into the search service. It gets this thing back, and then it builds what it calls citations, which are what we're showing, right? So like today, we would actually show this text right here that just says, level. That's kind of what Harness Database DevOps does today. So what got dropped was the ability to then take an additional step to actually generate the story tiles, which will provide a summary of all the chunks that are that are closely related. Um, and then the intention is to ultimately change. What is here would display the summary. The relevance will be more accurate than what it is today. And then when they click on it, instead of just seeing this one chunk, they would see the related chunks that actually comprise the storytelling. So
This is a really, really, really important concept for us to all understand and to be able to communicate. Who can paraphrase what is the difference between a chunk and a story tile?
Well, a chunk makes absolutely no sense to people. They're going to understand and find value, meaningful understanding from the summaries. And I think a big part of what Shelby showed is that these chunks, like I don't know for this particular use case, but I saw two chunks were about harness, right? And so Shelby, if you go back to the UI, that probably means if that was this chat here, that the first box and the second box were both from the same document. They're just different chunks because they were pulled out of different sections of the document. And so what I understand Shelby has just done and will make its way to the UI is that those two boxes would be merged into one box. They would be summarized together, and it would be clear that to the user that both of those chunks, which they don't care about, came from the same asset, and they'll have a single summary to help them understand really what we're talking about here. And so the user experience will be vastly improved.
On our website, our awesome new website, we've got an animation here. And let's just talk about what's happening in this animation. You can see that a file is being broken up into a lot. Let's think about these as grains of sand. Maybe we think about a chunk like a grain of sand. And so these files are being broken up into just like thousands of grains of sand. Now, when somebody asks a question, we need to reassemble those grains of sand to be able to answer the question. And now I'm going to go to our documentation where we talk about story tiles. And I'm going to scroll down to where it says Storytell creates chunks. And so Storytell breaks these files down into small text fragments called chunks. They're organized into clusters of closely related concepts. The more closely related a concept is, the more likely it is to be included in the same cluster. Each cluster of related chunks forms a story tile. So now imagine we're breaking these up into lots of grains of sand, and we have sand scattered all over the floor, but we're not limited to sand just from one file. The sand is just all together. Now we can reassemble that sand. Maybe we're reassembling it into rocks, or I don't know, something that is more, like more than just those grains of sand. But this is the key is that the chunks that get organized into story tiles might come from a number of files. That's the magic of it, is that it's not just from one file. It's just grains of sand that are similar to each other, high affinity to each other, become these story tiles. Now, Shelby, keep me honest if that's not what's actually happening.
that is exactly what happens.
I think in that sand analogy, if you imagine it's not just sand, but it's a bunch of different colored grains of sand, and it's all spread out on the floor. And what Shelby does in the search service is he builds chunks where all the red sand is together and the green sand is together and the blue sand is together. And then we describe what color chunk piles of sand you're looking at. And
Right.
all the sand's not messy anymore. It's all organized and sorted into colors of sand.